Right, hello everybody. I've got special guest Zoe Britton on today. She's from Arracan Group, who we're going to be having a chat with about her business, kind of what it's all about, and really kind of what your kind of long-term plans are, and a little bit about maybe some of those hurdles that you're going to come across in getting to those long-term plans. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about podcasts, obviously one of my favourite subjects. So, Zoe, tell us a little bit about your business. Kind of, you can have a few minutes or so. So maybe the journey and a bit about what you do, that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
just for the audience.
No problem at all. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a lovely opportunity, so thank you. So the Arracan Group, we are a husband and wife-led team, and I run the business with my husband Gary. Arracan Group was established in February 2020. Right before COVID, which was an interesting time to launch a business. And yeah, we are the one-stop shop for operational management support and social media marketing in the South East. We work predominantly in the South East, so from Kent to Gatwick, so the whole of the sort of Sussex, Kent surrounds.
Southeast.
The South East.
Yeah.
And we do operational management support. So that's everything from fleet management, health and safety compliance, risk assessments, auditing, and FORS as well, ISO 9001 and the 14001 accreditation. And we just offer that support for small and medium-sized businesses. And we also do social media marketing as well. So again, we make it easy and adaptable to our clients and help them to grow. But yeah, that's basically what we do.
What's the correlation between kind of health and safety and compliance-y stuff and social media? Because they're quite different, aren't they?
So it is, but the business is myself and Gary, and it's basically both of our knowledge and experience.
Okay.
So
like you do one bit, which bits?
Exactly,
who does
exactly
what?
that, and we just sort of and we do literally marriage together, and we found that clients, they buy into us, so they'll start working with us for compliance support, then they'll say, actually, I need help with marketing, whether that be on socials or blogs or website, and then it's a one-stop shop. So it's we're the go-to.
And which bit do you do? Are you more social
I'm
media?
more the social media and the
motions?
marketing side,
okay.
yeah. But I do dabble in the compliance and the auditing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's led you up to that point? So you were going along doing something, which you can tell us, and then in 2020, February, just before the big C bomb.
Yeah, the big C word.
Came along, you obviously went out on your own at that point. So what were you doing before that?
So before that, I had a career in civil engineering and construction. I was a PA and an office manager in various different companies, large corporate organisations in the UK. So that's my background. And a lot of people who get to know me go, that's the moment. So they sort of get my vibe and my character. So I've always really worked in a male-dominated industry. That's my comfort zone. So Gary and I actually met. We used to work together, and that's how we met way back. And so, yeah, that's always been my background. So I've always understood compliance. I've always understood ISO and that. And then what happened was I was made redundant after our first child was born. So I got a job, literally just got a job locally as an office assistant. I just needed a local job as a part-time role. So I took a role, in commercial and residential properties.
Okay.
So that was something completely different. But the way that I'm quite adaptable to change. So I was like, okay, let's get involved. But what I didn't realise was they were a UK big business, but they also owned a leisure complex further up the country. And they weren't doing any marketing. They couldn't understand the footfall was really down, or the marketing was very, very poor. It's just basically done by somebody in the office who didn't really know what they're doing. So I kind of said, well, I'll do it for you. So I improved their socials, really looked at their branding, really looked at their marketing. And then I just went on as many courses as I could. I was working part-time. And I just sort of really started to really understand the world of marketing. So, I was working part-time. I did that role for 8 years. And I loved the flexibility and the different roles that I took on in that role. Because 1 minute I would be on a commercial show round, the next minute I would be doing the residential checks and the inventories, going down doing the inspections, and then the next thing I'd be on a weekend shooting video, taking photos, doing the marketing. So it was really a wide range of tasks that I took on with that role. But Gary and I, we just sat one night in 2019 and just said, we were kind of done with working for other people. And what happens is, especially when you're in big corporates, is it's my way or the highway. And there's a lot of, I don't really care what you think, I just want you to do it this way. And they don't really understand the justification in why you're asking for this, or especially with compliance and health and safety, you come across stuff, and if it's flagged up and it's just sort of ignored, your moral compass goes, that's not right. So we were just kind of like, we can do this, and we want to be able to support businesses and run a consultancy, so what can we do? So that was really where that tiny...
Okay. So you're kind of 8 years in experience for the social media side of things and marketing and all the rest of it. Gary's obviously done his whole career in this industry, and then you've decided, not to kind of beat the drum or whatever the right terminology is.
Just beating the drum for somebody else and actually go, no, we want to do this for ourselves, but we want to be able to support businesses. There's an awful lot of finger wagging that goes on. In the industries, and we just thought, no, we want to be able to offer that support for businesses. So we just sort of really worked on thinking about our brand, our message, and then sort of went from there, really.
And what is the sort of message? Because in my mind, compliancy and social media are quite different, and I'm sure a lot of people probably say that to you. What's the sort of the message, if you like?
Well, the message really for us is about no question is a silly question. And actually it's okay to admit that you either don't know, don't understand, and actually just saying that I need help. And we get this more and more now with inquiries that come in, and they'll say things like, I really need help with this. And the other thing that we do also support clients with as well is HR. So again, it's staffing issues. One of the biggest things we have at the moment is clients are coming to us because they don't have any contract in place.
And what's the kind of divide? Because I've got your website up here, and I had a look at it before, and it's initially there's a lot of health and safety stuff, and there's not much mention of the social media style. What percentage are we talking here?
It really is 50-50, and the website does need a bit of an overhaul. But it is very much 50-50. Gary and I are very much equal in the business.
Okay. Because I think, we'll probably touch on some of the things later or whatever, but I think the website might need a bit of overhaul, because I think if the message is it's 50-50 or whatever, I was kind of expecting to go to the website and it'd be press here for health and safety, press here for social media, but you actually have to dig quite a long way before you find the social media bit of it. So, but I think it's good, but do you get that question quite a lot about what the divide is and how the connection is?
I do, especially when I'm at networking.
They're quite different, aren't they? In most people's minds.
What I tend to find is, especially when I'm networking, is businesses will say to me, "Oh, I understand social media marketing. I don't understand what the operational side." And a lot of this sort of dismissive attitude towards health and safety, compliance, legalities. There's a lot of confusion with what that is.
Is there scope for you to kind of feed the two things together? I'm thinking we do this sometimes where we would be our guys are on a training course, health and safety or whatever, or we've got ISO, and then lots of business get those things, but they don't then shout about it. So it's there's where I see a connection.
That's exactly what happens. Is a client will start working with us for one thing, and then they'll say, "Oh, actually, can you do with this?" And it just wants. So we have a few clients where Gary and I do actually work together.
Okay.
So I'll go 1 week and do their. Because again, it's important for both of us in the business to be able to visit our clients and have that face-to-face relationship. I've had other people say to me, "Oh, you could do this throughout the UK." I can't physically go to clients and shoot the content, create the videos, create the content without going there. It just doesn't work. And it's also building a relationship with their staff as well.
Yeah.
And the same with the auditing side. You can't do it virtually.
Yeah.
You have to be able to go. So, yeah, we quite often will cross over.
Yeah. Okay. And how's it been going since you started then? So obviously we had the rocky years.
We had the rocky patches. And what we decided to do, we saw an awful lot of business, and obviously it was a dreadful time. There was a lot of businesses pivoting. There was a lot of businesses sort of grabbing anything. And we just decided to stay our own lane. We literally stayed in our own lane, did our own thing, and we just sort of kept marketing. I took every opportunity I could to go networking, and they were all online. And I remember networking and being absolutely terrified. And Gary used to sort of sit off screen, and I would be shaking with fear because I just didn't enjoy the whole 60-second pitch on mute.
Yeah.
I found that more stressful than sat in a room full of people just talking. It was a very, very strange time.
The spotlight's literally on you at that moment.
It was just
time, isn't it?
really, really stressful. But I learned over time to just sort of take that opportunity and also listen. I think there's an awful lot of people that forget to really listen and understand who's talking and how they can help and if they're relatable. So, yeah, that's what we did. And then we just kept on marketing the business. And when the time came, businesses opened up, they knew who we were, what we were doing, and how we were able to help.
Do you think that, I mean, the pandemic itself probably assisted some of the parts of your business? Because I remember when we reopened, or a lot of businesses did, health and safety was like massive up there.
There was
like,
a lot
obviously,
of confusion.
COVID screens, 1 meter stickers on the floor, all that kind of stuff, like policies for staff and things, like if you get poorly or whatever. Presumably that probably, I'm guessing that probably did you quite well.
It did, yeah, it did. And it also opened up more opportunities as well, especially with the marketing, because during that time, a lot of people were put on leave or lifestyle changes and things. So there was a couple of opportunities where I did get clients come my way for freelance support. So that's where I was able to step in and help.
Yeah. Okay. And has that momentum sort of continued, do you think? How's the business trajectory going if you were going to draw a kind of traditional boardroom pie
it never fails to take us by surprise. We've had some leads come in recently, funny enough, from LinkedIn, where people who I'm connected to. I think we live in a world of curiosity.
Yeah.
And we tend to sort of stand by and watch and go, oh, and then we'll see that one thing that will make it relatable, whatever that post is or whatever the video is. And then they'll just say, oh, and then they'll reach out. And so we've had quite a few of those recently, and not just with one thing. I mean, if you would say to me, what is the one thing that makes the most money in the business? There isn't one particular thing. All the ISO, the health and safety, the HR, marketing.
But on a trajectory, as in year on year, it's increasing. Do you know percentage-wise?
I don't.
No. Oh, you got to know.
Gary's
numbers.
the money man. I'm not. No.
Well, at least someone's doing it. I suppose.
Oh yeah. No.
Some people don't do it.
He's
at
the one
all.
who's like,
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, but your best of knowledge is that it's increasing.
I think it's. I think I'm sure he said it was something like 20% year on year increasing.
Yeah. Which is good. That's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's have a little look at your kind of what you filled in. I know you might have some additional questions and things like that, but we'll have a quick little read of what you put originally, and then if you want to add anything to that, then feel free. So what are your goals for the next kind of calendar year, if you like, the next 12 months? So you've put continue to grow, raise awareness of what we do, launch a podcast, continue to develop our business, offering based on our clients' needs, desires. We have introduced training provision within our business model. So presumably, is there like a target of things that you want to do here? Because you want to continue development. Is there like a kind of a KPI or anything that you want to hit?
Not particularly a KPI, but because we spend a lot of time with our clients and we understand their needs, but it's also opportunities that arise for them and for us. So we'll go, something might crop up and there might be a collaboration or something that we can do and support with Does that make sense? So
yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, a KPI doesn't have to be like monetary sense. It
No.
can be like we want to take on our first employee, or we want to move to a bigger office.
We decided not to really do that. I mean, one of the things we did have, I suppose, rather than a clear KPI within the next 12 months we were going to do this, was we'd always, we have a home office, but we'd always envisioned visualised an office.
Yeah.
And, we'd been looking for a while and a couple of places come up, but they didn't quite fit. And we wanted to be able to park and just little things that we wanted for it to be right.
Do you get a lot of people come to see you, or do you mostly go out?
A mix really. But the idea, we just kept looking for someone. We couldn't find anywhere. And then Gary just stumbled across this amazing office in Heathfield High Street. So we went and had a look, and we were just kind of like, this is it.
Yeah.
And it ticked all the boxes. And the one thing it did have was quite a big boardroom, quite a good meeting room. Yeah. And we said, we can do first aid training in here. I can then do social media training, workshops and things. And then it was a couple of my business connections who I'd met through local networking groups had said, well, Zoe, now you've got this big meeting room, you're going to run a networking group. And I said, absolutely not. No, I'm not doing that. No. Because it's in Heathfield and there are other local, more serious groups, and I wouldn't want to encroach on them and tread on their toes. But then I started to think about really the small and medium-sized business owners that want the opportunity to network and connect and don't know how to do it. And there isn't really a space for them other than it being quite stuffy and quite corporate. So I decided after we took the keys in the July, and then I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So in the September, I held our first meeting. So I took about 6 weeks to market it and just put it out there and just said, come along. Yeah. And I said to a couple of my connections, oh, no one's going to come. No one's going to turn up. No one's going to come. The day came, I opened the doors, and all these people kept coming through the door. And I ran out of chairs.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, this is something a bit special that I've done.
Yeah.
And I just didn't believe it. So that kind of forced me really into sort of wanting to run a good networking group, but offer opportunities.
Yeah.
So I really started to, again, listen. We do have spotlights for opportunities.
Yeah.
So we give business owners the opportunity, if they want to, sort of 10, 20 minutes where they can talk about their business, but they can also share other things as well. So maybe a charity that they've supported or an event or anything inspirational. It's a chance for them. And we've had some amazing opportunities. Yeah. And it's offering that growth. So that's where it goes back to the Arracan Group and the business, is that it's about giving that opportunity and helping them.
Yeah.
So that's where I've kind of we've got to this point now where it's like, wow, okay, we're now running a really good, successful networking group. What else? So the podcast has come around because I've listened to people saying, oh my God, I'd love to go on a podcast. And how do I do it?
I think we can look at the podcast and stuff, but I have a question for you. So what does it look like when it's done? As in, like, when you've finished, you're done with the business. As in, like, you've completed. What's the end of the journey look like? What does that look like to you?
Oh God, I can't see an end journey. What, for Arracan Group?
Do you start with? I mean, a lot of people start with the end in mind. They go, right, I want to get to like 60 years old and have a business that I can sell on, or I have something I can pass down to my kids, or whatever it might be. That sort of stuff.
Gary and I have already said we're not going to retire.
Yeah, ever.
I mean, that's an interesting question because we haven't really spoken about that. I guess really it would be nice if both the boys do take the business on, but we really want it to remain face-to-face, relationship-based for our clients. I can't see it being national, but, who knows? But, we won't be
I think it would be, if you don't mind me saying,
No.
it would be a good idea to maybe work out what the end looks like
Yeah.
and then try and work backwards from there. Because as it expands, you do run the risk of doing lots of things and then you stretch yourself really far. I'm guilty of that. Like I'd be like, we'll do this or we'll buy that business or whatever, and you stretch yourself really far. So sometimes working out what the end looks like if that is to hand down to your kids, go, right, what we want to do is make a business that's sustainable. It's got cash flow coming in that you don't have to fight for every single month and keep going out, or recurring revenue streams or whatever it might be, or a strong brand that we can then package up, give to the kids. And if they don't run it in the same way in passion that you've run, it's not going to all fall apart straight away. That might be your end goal, for instance.
That's an interesting question. I'll definitely
I think it's worth working out, because it start with the end in mind is a common phrase used.
No, it's a good one actually.
And then you'll be able to work back from there to exactly what you are. And then when opportunities come and you go, right, the networking is really brilliant, but actually it chews up like 7 hours of a week for me, for instance. I don't know if it's weekly, monthly or whatever, but let's say it chews up half a day every week, running it, organising it and the rest of it, but it brings you in a quarter of what you can do on a training package. And money isn't necessarily the key driving factor, but if your end in mind is to create a business that's sustainable and has cash flow coming in every single month, and there are easier, lower hanging fruit to pick, then that might change your
really good point,
direction. I'm not saying the networking is a bad thing, because you might say, actually, that's really good and it's sustainable and anyone can take over from me. Because things like the local chambers, for instance, they exist because people come in and they run them voluntarily or whatever. So if you end up with like a networking group where people are just doing it for their own branding, if you like, so they like to be in charge of it because then there's an extension of business to that. No different to this podcast. We do it for free because it exposes me to other opportunities. If you can do that and slightly monetize it a little bit, that is a bit of drip feed income that your kids or you are not having to start over every single month. So I don't know how, if you have recurring income, maybe you know that or not, but businesses that have to like start over every month are ones that you have to continuously fight for. So it's always good to have like some money coming in. Like that might be something that you go, the end in mind is to have like something we don't have to kind of fight every month. Like
that's a really good point. But that's where, I've been developing the networking groups more. And I say groups because since launching Heathfield, we had a connection who came to a meeting and said, this is amazing, this is great, I love the vibe. Will you help us set up one in Battle?
Yeah.
And I said, we'll help you set it up. So me and my, I have somebody who supports me with the networking groups. We went over there and set it up for them. And that was such a great feeling to be able to say, this is what we've learned, this is what we've listened to, and this is what people want, this is what businesses want.
Yeah.
And it's not about treading on the toes. And I just think it's, so we've got Crowborough, Heathfield, Battle, Buxted. So all sort of around that area, but it's a very different vibe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that pulls upon your skills as a marketeer to do that. But I think it's, you have to work out the time that's being done on that versus the time there and what that end goal is. I know I keep harping on about that, but I do think that will help you a little bit figure out kind of your direction and not get too diluted in the wrong direction, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does,
because if you were like, if you came in here and said, I want to have like 20 employees and the rest of it and so on, I might say, you can build that up and then give it to someone and delegate them to run it as a member of your team. But if you're kind of trying to keep it like in some sort, like a kind of freelancey sort of family type business, that's going to be quite difficult to scale. Just the end in mind.
We will. I will. Yeah, definitely.
We're all guilty of it. That's for sure. But it's something I've learned, that sometimes it's better to be like, right, that's where I want to go. Even though I don't know what the route is to get to it, but that's where, when it's done, I know what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one.
So talk to me about the podcast then. So you want to launch that. What's the kind of thinking behind that, reasons and whatever?
Again, going back to the networking group, I sort of listened to the businesses that attend. And same as me when I started back, funny enough, on the walk-in this morning, I was thinking back to like 4 or 5 years ago what would the Zoe then think of the Zoe now? And I was like, God, that was a really powerful thought and something that we forget to look back on. So it's now nice to be able to support the businesses just starting up or the ones that are more established. And they do look at the likes of ours and go, wow, like, you know, you're so not successful, but whatever success looks like. But I really admire what you do. You're always putting yourself out there and it's hard. So I really want to be able to support those businesses and give them opportunities. And like I said, we're now running workshops, marketing workshops for businesses. And we intend on running more workshops. But the podcast just came around because I just thought, I've got this great space and office. Why not use it? And I just love the idea of just chat and conversation. And it seems to be a trend. It does seem to be that a lot of people are doing it, but it's great for content.
Yeah.
So I really want to start and do that and give them the opportunity to put themselves out there a little bit more and be comfortable with talking about their business.
Yeah, definitely. I do think it's obviously, because what we're doing right now, I do think it's a really good avenue for people to expose themselves for self-branding. I do this so that I'm not kind of always fixated on like a certain business that I run, because I've got several businesses. And people see me for how I am, and I just passionately love talking about business and business owners. I love kind of queering it a little bit or whatever, things like that. People do that to me as well, maybe not over a podcast table, but when I'm out and about and they're like, who questions all the decisions you make, Matt, all this kind of stuff. So, in terms of direction of the business and things. So it's quite interesting, that sort of stuff. I would say most people don't bother to monetize it. It's normally for themselves. So again, start with that end in mind if it doesn't fit into that. For me, it was about making sure that I wasn't just like Matt from our main business being Charles Cox. Matt is Charles Cox and that's that, and I have another skill set or whatever. We do this for free for people and invite them in and the rest of it. Happy to appear on other people's podcasts as well, if anybody wants me to come on.
Oh, well, you never know, you might get an invite now, won't you?
Then I'm happy to do all of that. But in terms of like the space here, we're quite fortunate enough that we'll be able to give over this amount of space. And we have Luke here who edits all the videos and does other social bits and stuff like that. So like there is a cost implication to this, even though we're sort of doing it for free, if you like. It does actually cost us. So it has to have its own KPI that we're actually growing the channel. And when like even just like lenders or other people, they watch the video or they see what else I do other than that, or the fact that I'm not maybe required in the business all the time. So that means that the business is sustainable if I get hit by a bus, maybe. I don't know what they might think, but it all assists to creating that kind of brand and image. I know when off air we talked a lot about equipment and stuff like that. I don't know if you had any questions on that, like setup and the rest of it.
Well, so we've got a very similar setup, literally very, very similar, just without the table, because I just think people are comfortable with body language. And I've really taken the time to really think about the setup, because I think I see a lot of people get it really wrong, or it's just a bit rushed. At the moment I'm probably going to be shooting using just two tripods and 2 cameras. And then eventually I do want to invest in some real tech. I have actually got a mic. And I've also got the plug-in mic, the lapel mics as well. But I like the personal aspect of the interviews, if you want to call it that, and the sort of rabbit holes that you can end up going down. The personality that then comes out, the different things you can then talk about. And I like that aspect of it. So really it's just about tech, and again, I know you said it, but off air we talked about tech and things that have not worked for you and that have worked really well. And obviously you've got a great setup here today.
It's been a bit of an evolution. If I'm honest, anybody can go back and look at some of the early podcasts and videos that we did, and the quality of them is much improved now compared to it was then. But it was a learning curve, but also a test into the water for us. So I didn't want to chuck loads of money at it and have a full-on setup and then it not really work out, or we have like, you know, my mates down the pub come on the show and then eventually it all sort of pitters out and then you've spent 10 grand on equipment and then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, what am I going to do this with? So we've kind of invested as the times come along. You know, this room here is born of that journey, essentially. Even the cameras that we use now, these microphones, all that kind of stuff, that's all stuff that's been added as we've gone along, as opposed to spending the money straight away. So yeah, and we're learning all the time as well. We're going to start playing with the thumbnails and the descriptions of the videos to see if we can get like different types of people to watch them and stuff like that. So it's an ongoing journey. But as I say, that all is time and money and essentially dealing with all of that. So it's a fair big commitment, not just in equipment. I don't know if you would plan to edit them yourself, but the editing time, I mean, Luke can spend several hours just editing what you might watch in like, you know, a couple of minutes or even 30 seconds.
That's the thing, you know, at the moment it will be me editing it. And I've actually also got light boxes as well. But yeah, it'll be me editing it and I want to keep it sensible.
Yeah.
You know, I can't make it eat up too much of my time, but I know that there's a CapCut and there's a few others that you can literally, they will kind of almost use AI to edit it for you. So
I suggest you probably start with that sort of stuff and then see how it evolves, really. We started with the kind of manual editing, if you like, because the AI stuff didn't really exist anymore. It wasn't as prevalent, but we probably would have started with that. The danger of it is that the algorithms and YouTube and stuff know that it's produced by AI, so they don't push it as much, or they can pick up on the metadata and all that kind of stuff. You know, based upon what you've done with the video. So, but I think as a starting point, they're really great because it is cost, you know, time and money.
It is,
and those videos can be fairly well edited by AI. You just have to watch them back before you press the upload button.
But I'm not. I mean, the whole AI debate is an interesting one, isn't it? And I think it's, you know, it's useful in its own right, and when it's used well. But no, in terms of tech, another question for you then. So in terms of editing tech, what do you suggest?
Well, there's loads of editing software, but I suggest you to start with, you try and get whatever's cheap or free. If you have going to use iPhones and stuff like that, and you've got a MacBook or whatever, often iMovie's included free for that. But we use Adobe and various other bits of software here. And a combination of Canva as well to edit thumbnails and bits and bobs. And there's other bits of software we use that we've bolted on as time goes by. But in the early days, it was whatever was free. In fact, actually, way before all of this, if anybody wants to go back and look, I ran a channel called Frugal Finance, which helped people with kind of building wealth and stuff like that. And I did that during the pandemic. And I filmed pretty much all of that on my iPhone and edited it on iMovie, but the app, not even the full screen, because I don't own, or then I didn't own a full-blown iMac PC or MacBook or whatever. So I edited it on my phone or on an iPad. So yeah, there's lots of tools out there. And those videos are fairly basic, but they actually have transitions between the shots. You can zoom in and out. The sound is pretty okay, you know, and, you know, people did watch them. So you can do stuff fairly cheaply, and I suggest that might be a kind of good intro into
that's a really good point, actually, is you've got to start somewhere.
Because you need to figure out the time versus money thing and that goal at the end, really. Because for me, we were inundated with podcast guests at the very beginning.
Right.
And we've had to cut it down so that we were only really giving over like an hour or so a week to podcast guests, as opposed to we were having like 4 in a week. And I just couldn't sustain that, to be honest. I have other things to do.
Yeah,
I was
we're running businesses, you know, it's got to be sensible.
Missing out on opportunities and the rest of it. And it was really nice. But, you know, you have to then remember back what's the end goal of this podcast, really. And it was exposure for myself. So are we going to get the same levels of exposure if I do 1? Or am I going to get 4 or 5 times the exposure if I do 4 or 5? Well, we couldn't get them out any quicker than 4 or 5. So eventually what was happening is we're telling people there's like an 8-week lead-in to come on the show. Yeah. And then they're like, and then they'd forgot by the time, and then we get the odd one drop out nearer the time, or this form was totally irrelevant because they're small business, and it completely changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of had to sort of scale it back into control.
But I think that makes sense to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's where, again, with the networking group, bring it back to that again, is the opportunity will be there for those that come.
Okay.
That's where I'm going with that. It's like, Arracan Connections. It will be the brand, and it will be the opportunity for businesses to come in. That's where I go with that. And obviously, again, it's it's those that are around me that I support, the relationships that I have, and I'm able to then refer, and it be organic and it be genuine. And that's where we're kind of going with the groups as well.
Yeah. I've read over your more kind of longer term goals, like your 3 to 5 years, and obviously you're saying that you never know what's around the corner. You'd like to continue developing the networking groups, offering geographically various offerings to businesses in the southeast, potentially employing staff and so on. And then the longer term goals, you're saying it's hard to know what you want to achieve, but I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying about working out what the end goal is, because I think a lot of people, if you say this is our target, you'll achieve that. But if you there's a phrase where it's like people underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years but overestimate in a year. And I think you kind of fall into that camp, the podcast and the networking thing, and then the social media, and then the website needs some TLC and all that kind of stuff is like now, but actually probably if you had your end goal, you might say actually what we need to do is the website first of all, and then maybe the podcast group, and then do a little bit of this, and what is the end goal here, and then work out backwards from that really. That's why it's probably quite hard for you to see what the 10-year goal is essentially, or how, or what it looks like. So yeah, I know I keep harping on about that, but
no, it's fine. It's always interesting.
I do think that will really help you. And have some mini KPIs or some remits for things like the podcast. You want to have no more than one guest a week, or whatever, whatever your criteria is, one a fortnight or something like that. These are the types of business I want to target. Like in the early days, we recognised that the podcasts that we had that had women on were more popular than the ones that had men on. So we went on a bit of a drive to try and get more women on the channel.
Right.
And now we've got a lot of women on the channel, and now we probably look back at the data and it's probably changed, and the ones with the blokes on are different. I don't know. We need to do that exercise again. So yeah, we're always setting those kind of targets, but the long-term goal is to get brand exposure really for myself. So that when I'm talking to people about acquisitions, deals or whatever, they can see a little bit more about what I am about, and that I've got some sort of knowledge that isn't just gift of the gab or something.
That's exactly it, isn't it? And this is a great way to have the opportunity to be able to do just that. And
yeah. So in terms of what's going to stop you getting there into these goals, so currently you've written down, we don't really know until the challenge appears. It's not to be unprepared, but you really don't know what's the next challenge is going to be. It could be legislation, for example, global pandemic, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan of fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I think that, we can't know about the pandemic or whatever. That's always hard. But definitely, as I said before, with the reoccurring income and not having to kind of always fight for it. Because if you I don't know, with their say health and safety, you do some training and then it's done and you get paid. And then you need another customer to come in and do some training and then get done and get paid. Whereas if you had a business model that was maybe like a retainer or something like that, and you say, look, rather than spending £1,200 on training all your staff, you can pay us £100 a month, and then we'll just come in every year, and you don't have to then suddenly find £1,200 to do the training, and then you've got £100 a month recurring income coming in over a year. So if you had I'm not saying that would be the model,
retainers is an interesting thing that we do because then they get us, and they've got that reassurance. So they can. They feel like they can bend your ear, and some months they won't even phone you. Other months they'll phone you 10 times. So you'll feel like you've lost money, but then remember last month they didn't phone at all. Like a service agreement. But anything. I mean, we own an accountancy practice, and we allow people to pay monthly for their accounts. So traditionally, you get your big bill from your accountant, £2,000 or something like that.
they can pay monthly throughout the year for their accounts, so they don't end up with this cash flow problem. Because a lot of businesses are kind of small to medium, and like you lumber them with a £2,000 bill, and sometimes they go, "Oh, can I pay half this month, half next month?" Well, why bother with that? You can just pay 12 instalments over a year, interest free, just keep paying it. If they stop paying, then we stop doing the work, and if they continue to pay, we finish their accounts off. So it's fairly simple. You don't end up with like big debtors in that sense, or like we've done the accounts but you haven't paid us. So I think like a model like that might be worth you exploring.
One of the things that we are interested in developing is a membership. But you've got to think more the compliance than really the marketing side. So where they pay a fee, they get the compliance help and support. So that's something that we are potentially looking at developing.
I think you could do it with the marketing as well, because I think a lot of people that I come across, because that space is quite busy, the social media space. It is very busy. A lot of them say, like, we'll do a bronze package, which is like 6 Facebook posts and 2 on Instagram. We'll set a WhatsApp group. You send me the photographs with a brief description. I'll tidy it all up and post it on there. And in return for that, that costs you £99 a month. And like you can use AI to generate those things. So it's not like you've got to sit at a desk and kind of really think about how you're going to tidy up their posts. So, and you can use posting schedule bits of software. There are lots of tech out there and I'm sure you know a lot of those. But I think those sort of things would help, because you're right, we can't predict the future, but what we have to do is kind of just say, okay, well, we could get an economic downturn, health and safety, AI could come along and you know, be very useful to people trying to do like cost statements, health and safety policies and all the rest of it, because you could probably go into ChatGPT and just say, knock me up a health and safety policy. We've had this already, and then you read it and it's utter tripe, and you think you've literally put yourself at risk. They don't know it's tripe. That's the problem. So in your marketing and your delivery is to educate people why that's not very good, those ChatGPT generated policies. But I think that as that gets cleverer, it will get closer to it. So if you can come up with solutions to try and see that, that's 5 years down the line, what do we need to do to sort of harness the power of ChatGPT to our benefits or similar? There are other programs available. And kind of feed that into your business so that in 5 years' time, you're not suddenly caught off guard where you know you're kind of behind with it, really. So I guess, you know, in terms of not knowing what the challenges are, I think if you just kind of think about what's coming and then kind of work backwards from that. I've said it again, haven't I? Work backwards from that. But yeah, if you have a look at that ChatGPT stuff, I think it will change a lot of things, like solicitors, accountants, all that kind of stuff. You know, we're worried about it in the accountancy practice. People will be able to go, here's all my bank statements, produce me a set of accounts, ChatGPT or something similar, blah, 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 done, here it is. People won't know what they're looking at, or whether it's tax efficient, or they've been given the best advice, or the best advice for them personally. But there'll be loads of get-out clauses, and that will probably tick the box for most businesses. Owners. They'll probably just say, I just want to know how much tax I owe. Is broadly speaking what I've saved up, good, that will do. And that is a lot of clients and a lot of people. So that will probably come along. It's a danger zone, isn't it? Yeah. It's a massive danger. But how do you harness that? It means that in that business, we can service a lot more people if we use ChatGPT to our advantage or AI to our advantage. You know, Sharon, who runs that for us, she can probably harness that, and then we can do like 10 times the amount of accounts that we could do before for people that can't figure out how to use it properly. Or maybe they get their accounts, but then they just need the advice. Like if you're saving up for a house, you need to do this set of accounts and declare a little bit more, or leave some money in your business because there's rocky times ahead or something. So, yeah, I think forward thinking or seeing. I know we don't have a crystal ball. Wish I did. But yeah, trying to have a look at how things will pan out and so on. Yeah. Will do you proud, I think. Yeah, no, I think we do sort of look back at how far we've come already. You know, and we hear it's kind of humbling when you hear people say, oh, people are talking about you. Yeah. What you're doing, and you know, your brand.
I mean, now we joke about the orange and black, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
Branding's so important, and then people go, oh yeah, you want to go and talk to these guys, and that's when it's just organic and natural. And we both believe the business as a whole as well is about being helpful. No question is silly.
Yeah. Do you have any large customers or anybody that makes up?
We do, yeah. We
What have you
we work for and one of our clients is a national company.
Yeah.
And they do on-site repairs, on-site fleet maintenance repairs.
Okay. And how much of your business does that make up, their contract?
It's hard to describe as a percentage because we're both involved in that client, so it's really nice. So again, we're able to sort of sit with the client, and then I am helping with their marketing, and Gary's helping them achieve ISO accreditation and the health and safety.
Are they more than 10% of the business, do you think?
They're probably about 10%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What my advice for you is to go away and make sure that they're not bigger than 10%, because it's quite dangerous to have one customer that's... Because if they might have a really super good relationship with you, and then the CEO or MD or you're the person you talk to retires or moves on or gets made redundant, and then somebody else comes in and they've got other contacts from somewhere else. So 10% is like the danger zone. Like any more than 10, you shouldn't have one customer make up more than 10% of your business, basically, because you're then heavily reliant upon them. And it is quite hard to always sustain that. I mean, I've got bits of this business that we run where we've got clients that make up 40, 60% of the business. Yeah. Wow. So and as fast as we dilute them, they then give us more work because we're getting better, and then they give us more, and then the dilution never goes away. So we have to be very careful with them that we are kind of, really monitoring our relationship with them and looking at it and seeing how sustainable that is and making sure they're tied in with us and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well, because what happens is when a client buys into you, and they do buy into you and your experience and your advice and your support, I mean, we say that we are our clients' counsellors, because sometimes we know how hard it is being a business owner. We know how lonely it is. And even if when you are successful, it's still really hard because the buck stops and starts with you. And there's no one really around to talk to and get advice and support from other than paying for it. So we work with them, and sometimes it's just, they just want you to listen. Yeah. Not necessarily do anything. And sometimes it is about things they've not thought of. But yeah, that is a really valid point about not taking up too much time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's time and the money they bring.
Mission creep, that's what Gary calls it. He's always on me, mission creep.
What does he mean by mission creep?
Mission creep. So what that is basically, again, what you're saying about, I mean, all our clients are our favourite clients, right? Yeah. But you've got that one client that is your favourite, and you don't mind helping them because they're so lovely and they're so supportive of you and they're so appreciative. So you'll sort of do that little bit more without thinking about it. And they'll ask you, oh, you wouldn't mind sitting in on this meeting, would you? And you're like, well, okay then. And then that's mission creep. Yeah. Where you're not charging for your time, or you're like, yeah, okay, I'll just be here an extra hour. Yeah. That's mission creep.
Yeah, you're trying to...
So, for example,
you're trying to service and maintain a legacy agreement where we have that here, like back when we were small, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I dealt with clients like directly on a regular basis because I was one of the only people here working here. Right. It's natural. We still look after some of those clients and they will only deal with me. As try as we might, but in my heart, I'm like... They're also got 10, 15 years older and, I'm not stupid. They're not going to be around forever. They'll either sell up and move on or they might not even be here anymore. So it's nice to stay in touch with them. So it's a kind of managing your own time arrangement there. And legacy clients, ones you've done it too cheap for as well. I've talked a lot about that, like how do you get off this kind of cycle where at the beginning you went in super cheap because you needed the money, and then they're still on that old pricing rate, and you don't feel like you can move them off because they were there at the beginning supporting you and all the rest of it. I don't know, you have anything like that at all?
We do have one or two, but we're actually just bringing them in line with everybody else, and they can see the value. They can see the value of the support, the relationships there. And ultimately, it's down to them.
I always think if they're good legacy clients, they will understand why you're doing that. And even if you're only offering them like a 5% discount off of a walk-in, then they'll still appreciate that. It's the ones that you do that and then they go, they probably were going to go the second that you did, you fell out about something or something didn't quite align with where you're going. So okay. So I think that's kind of wraps it up off your form. So just to sort of recap, I mean, I think working with the end in mind would be quite good, setting some kind of key KPIs and watching that kind of 10% customer and all that sort of stuff. And then that might help you focus a little bit on kind of seeing where you're going to end up and then maybe the future as well and guide you and not allow you to get too diluted essentially by doing too many things. So I don't know if you had any burning questions for me or anything you wanted to ask me particularly or whatever.
I was just thinking about that, and I was just wondering about we all talk about the ideal client, but what's the reverse of that? Is you get the lead that comes in and the red flags are there, and it's how you tactfully and respectfully turn that work away.
Well, I do get asked that a bit, and I think there are only two. Well, there are kind of three ways. You can either just sort of inadvertently tell them to go. We don't nicely when you're not in our remit, if you like.
Right.
But the other ways are either to figure out why they're like that. They might just be a problematic, or maybe they've got some preconceptions about the last business they work with or in that industry or whatever. And try and iron that out and see if you can actually figure out why it is that there's some red flags coming up. Or you can kind of just price them accordingly. And then if you price yourself out of it, well, then, that's that. We do the two latter. So we're kind of always taking the attitude of like, nothing can't be fixed. As in, like, you get a big problematic client and they've got this and a legal issue and the rest of it, and you think, oh, this is just going to be a load of work. Well, we'll price it because we know there's going to be work to do here. Yeah. But I'm not scared of it because I just think anything can be fixed. And sometimes a change of personality, maybe they didn't get on with their last agent or whoever they were working with. Other clients have come through and we have just literally just said, I know that's going to be a pain and it probably won't get any better. So this is our price for dealing with it because I know it's going to be really time consuming. Right. And when you get dragged in on that extra 1 hour meeting or whatever, the first thing is, yes, but there's a charge for it. And you need to pay in advance as well. So because we don't, maybe if we're not trusting them that they're actually going to get paid for that hour, then they'll ask for the money up front. So you put some parameters in, and processes and parameters are really important as your business grows, especially if you're going to get more staff in or maybe family members or whatever, that they've got something to follow, because you can't stand over them all the time and go, don't forget to charge that client, that's an extra meeting.
hour.
You can't have that. You need to go, right, first of all, first things first, when someone asks you to go to a meeting, read the contract that they've got. That's the first protocol. The contract's king. Does it say included in the price of 5 meetings and you've had 6? So therefore, this one must be chargeable because you've had too many. Or there's 5 meetings and you've only had 2 this year, so therefore you've got 2 hours left of meetings. If this meeting runs over, it's chewing into the other hour. It's not 5 separate meetings. No. This is 5 hours worth of meetings, for example. So good policies are key, and we can use our friend AI for policies galore. Hayley here loves a good bit of AI policies, but you can tweak them a little bit and so on. But they're really easy to set up, and I think that it gives people something to follow. Especially if you're going to take on your first couple of members of staff or get family members involved or whatever, and you want them to live and breathe the way that you would do the business. You've got to turn some flexibility. If you want to give them the autonomy and power to say, oh, I'll chuck that one in for free, you need to put the guidelines down to that. Otherwise, they chuck everything in for free. Yeah. People tend to go for the route of least resistance. And if it involves a conversation saying, I'm going to charge you, probably only 1 in 10 members of staff are happy having that conversation. They feel bad about like they're embarrassed almost, Yeah. So yeah. Any other questions?
No, can't think of anything.
Well, It's been really super having you on. It'd be good to see where you're at in a year's time and maybe see if you've worked out what the end goal is. And obviously, I'd love to come on your podcast when you get it all up and running and the rest of it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Hopefully we can get you back on in a year's time.
Yeah, or we'll get Gary to come on.
Cool, super. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank
and
you.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.